C7 owners, everyone. My name is Cameron, and I got another DIY for you today. We are talking about bleeding your brake system. So whether you're doing this for maintenance, whether you're doing this because you changed some lines like I have, I've got JH Motorsport braided stainless steel lines installed, we got some air in the system, your pedals feeling mushy, whatever it is, this should cover everything for you C7 owners. I think this is also going to apply to your B8, S4s, SQ5s as well. You should be able to use this DIY and accomplish the job. So we've got a pressure bleeder here. I'm going to show you how to use this. This is a one-man operating system. You should be able to do this by yourself. And then I'm going to also talk about a more traditional method where you use two people. I will say I've done this twice now on my car. Well, actually once on my car and then once on Tyler Hayes, the Void Carbon S7. And it's tricky. These things are a little bit tricky. It's not just a go through each caliper and you're done. You're gonna have to do this multiple times more than likely. So just as a heads up, make sure you take your time and do this correctly. Make sure there's no error in the lines here and your brakes are performing as they should. So we'll get into more of that later. But I've got this pressure bleeder. This is from Amazon. I got a link below if you want to grab this one. You can get more expensive ones. You can get cheaper ones. This one's worked for me so far. It came with the pressure bleeder and a catch bottle. So all one and done set. It's got the attachment. This actually does fit perfectly on our brake fluid reservoir. And it's got a little tool to help open up your pressure bleeder bottle here, if you will, to put in your brake fluid. Speaking of, we're going to be using Rova .4 brake fluid. I've been using this for a few years now, and it's actually served me extremely well for multiple runs to the tail of the dragon with very aggressive driving, along with a bunch of other mountain runs and just daily driving where I absolutely abuse my car, and it's been great. Now, you should be changing your brake fluid, especially if you drive your car spiritedly, about once every 2 years. If you drive it even harder than that, maybe a little bit sooner, maybe a year and a half, 1 year, whatever you want to do. This stuff is not terribly expensive. There are more expensive brake fluids that do perform a little bit better. They're racing brake fluids, so you could do that if you want to, but I mean, they get to be really expensive. This stuff is very affordable and it performs very well, but use what you think you need. The reason you want to change your brake fluid maintenance-wise is moisture can get in the system. You can be burning up your brake fluid. So yeah, it's a critical component of your vehicle and the safety of driving your car. So make sure you don't skimp on this maintenance. I'm doing it because I swapped out some brake lines. I've got JH Motorsport braided stainless steel brake lines in there now, and I've got air in the system, so I got to do it. Going to go ahead and do a whole flush anyways because it's been a couple years. So yeah, I'm going to rearrange some things, set up, and we'll talk about what we need to in regards to getting this system set up and doing the pressure bleed. The only other tools you're going to need besides the pressure bleeder is going to be a 7/16 or an 11mm open box wrench. Even better if you have the one that's kind of offset, that works better on the calipers. Some gloves and a drain pan. And you'll probably need some kind of a light so you can see what you're doing. The first thing we're going to do is take the reservoir top off here. We're going to use a small right angle pick to just pop off the wiring harness connector there. It's the easiest way on this one. Unscrew it, shake it out, and then just set this somewhere out of the way where it's not going to get damaged or any debris on it. Now, this yellow piece in here is like a built-in internal strainer filter type thing to stop any large debris from getting in there. Where on a lot of videos you see, they say to put in something to siphon all the old fluid out that's in the reservoir. You can't do it on this one, and there should be a picture right here that shows you what it looks like on the inside, and this doesn't come out easily, so just leave it in there. But now that we have that off, we're going to take our adapter piece from the kit that we have, and it's got a seal on the inside of it. Make sure that is there, and that's going to make this airtight. We'll spin it down, get it nice and tight. Next, we're going to prep our actual pressure bleeder. So we need to open this thing up, and that's on there tight for good reason. So you can get this on here. It gives you the leverage to open it up. So we'll unscrew this, and we're going to fill it up with our Rova brake fluid. Now, to do a full bleed, you shouldn't need much more than this, but we're going to go ahead and put 2 bottles in. And the reason for that is what you don't want to have happen when you're doing this is this thing to run out of fluid, because then you have to take it off and you introduce air back into the reservoir again. So we're going to put 2 bottles of the .4 from Rova here just to be safe. Now, one thing, if you were going to be doing this after swapping calipers, like let's say you upgraded your 30T calipers to S6, S7 calipers, those are a lot bigger, or even if you're one of those crazy people like Void Carbon putting in the C8 massive Brembos, you're going to need a lot more fluid than this. Just something to keep in mind. And the cool thing about this is once we're all done, if we have a bunch left over, we can just pour it back into the bottle. Once again, this has a seal in here. Make sure that's good, not damaged. Tighten this up, and since this is a pressure system, you want to make sure this is good and tight, but not over torqued, but use the little tool they provide and make sure it's snug. So once you've got your pressure bleeder filled, you've got your adapter cap on the reservoir, very simple next step, we're just going to attach the pressure bleeder to the reservoir by pushing down. making sure it's locked on there. Got a nice flexible hose here, make sure it's not kinked up at all. And then we need to actually pressurize the bleeder. You can see you've got a gauge here. We're gonna pressurize it till it gets to about 15 PSI. So it's only gonna be up there. We don't wanna go above 15 PSI because that could potentially do damage to the system. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And as you do your bleed, you wanna keep it in that 15 PSI area. Usually what I do is I'll bleed one caliper, and after I bleed that caliper, I'll come over here and I'll check it out. That looks pretty good right about there. Okay, so I've got my pressure bleeder set right to 15 PSI, right on the money. We're gonna let it sit there for at least 5 minutes. And the reason for that is we wanna make sure there's no slow loss of pressure. Now, I've already walked around all 4 corners and verified that there's no obvious leaks. Everything looks good and dry, but we still are gonna let it sit there just to make sure there's not a very slow loss of pressure that would indicate some kind of a really slow leak that I need to find. Now, while we're doing that, let's talk about the sequence of the calipers that you need to bleed. Traditional bleeding techniques tell you to bleed the caliper furthest away from your master cylinder. Now, for us, that's gonna be on a left-hand drive vehicle, the rear passenger caliper. From there, you move to the rear driver caliper, then the front passenger caliper, and then finishing with the front driver caliper. For whatever reason on the C7 manual, Audi wants you to start and do it the opposite way. So we're gonna start with the front driver caliper, moving to the front passenger, then the rear driver caliper, and then ending with the rear passenger caliper. I'm honestly not sure why they do that, but you can see this graphic here is going to show you the sequence. At the end there it says bleeding a clutch slave cylinder. That's for a manual vehicle, which we don't have in North America. So if you have a manual C7 overseas somewhere, then you're going to also have to finish up with that at the very end. Now it also shows the volumes of fluid you're going to need. In total, we should need about 1 liter for an automatic transmission. And we are, once again, we have overfilled. We've put 2 liters into here just to be safe because we don't want to run the risk of running dry and introducing air while we're doing this. That defeats the whole purpose, but I definitely suggest you add extra than that 1 liter. Now, if you have done a caliper, once again, remember, if you've changed an actual caliper, you're going to need a little bit more fluid, so keep that in mind. One more note, if you've got an S6, S7, or one of the larger front brake calipers that have dual pistons on each side, you will need to know that you have to start on the inner part of the caliper bleeding and then bleed the outer part. So bleed the part that is closest to the engine of your car or your axle, whatever you want to say, and then once you're done with that, you bleed the outside of the caliper as well, and I'll show you how to do that here on the next step. We are sitting at the driver's side caliper now. It's hard to get the camera in here where you can actually see everything on the back side here. So I'll be using this one as a reference. We're gonna start on the inside first, then go to the outside. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our 11mm or 7/16 inch wrench over the actual bleed port here, get it settled on there. Then we're gonna take our catch bottle with the adapter. We're gonna push it down over the bleed nipple, so that would be going over that part on the back there. Once you have that, we've got the pressure set, everything looks good. We're gonna crack it loose. So we're gonna go left with it. We're gonna open it, and when we do, we should see dark fluid coming out of here, and then eventually some air. And what we're waiting for is nice clear green fluid to come out. So we're gonna crack it loose here. And you can see already got air coming through because we're pushing air out of my brand new lines. And now we can see fluid coming through. I don't know what's coming through in the video very well, but I'll show it to you a little bit clearer on this side. But yeah, for now, I'm gonna let this bleed. And then after that, once we're done, I'll show you on the front and we'll move on. We bled the back until there was no more bubbles and it was just clean fluid. So now we're gonna go to the front side. So we'll get the wrench on there, get the actual catch bottle secured on there. And some of these have little chains that'll hold it up, which is cool, but I'm just going by hand. We'll loosen it up. And you can see the fluids start to come through. There's lots of little bubbles. There's even a little bit of debris in there. So we're gonna let that drain through until we get some nice clear fluid along with no bubbles. So I've done the front 2 calipers, now I'm at the rear, and the rear calipers on the S6, S7, 4T cars are the same as the 3.0T cars. So you don't really need to worry about any crazy differences, but it's the same procedure as the front. We're just gonna go ahead and pop that cover off. We will get our wrench on there. We attach the catch bottle, and brake fluid is super slippery, guys. It's kind of a pain. Like, gloves are good to protect yourselves, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to make sure you get it on there all the way. We're gonna actually rotate it off to the side here so that we can angle it downwards. And then we're gonna open this thing up. And you can see how dark that is coming out of there. Sometimes if you give a little shake, it'll help it start to flow down the tube there. And you'll hear it start to actually collect into the bottle. So we're gonna let that go for a bit. I don't know if you can see all those little bubbles coming out of there, but that's what we want to get out of there. Now, in between doing each caliper, I've given the pressure bleeder a few pumps to make sure it stays at about 15 PSI. Now, every once in a while, I'll close it and let the pressure bleeder build some pressure back up, and then I'll open it up again. So we're going to do this until we see nice, just clear green fluid coming out, no bubbles. There goes one right there. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up on the passenger side. And I would suggest doing this whole process, if you're just using the pressure bleeder, do it at least twice, just to make sure. But once again, don't let your pressure bleeder up front run out of fluid. Just to show you guys, whenever you pull this thing off, it's going to make a mess. You can see that. So make sure you have a can of brake clean ready to clean all this stuff up once you're done. Once you've completely bled all four corners, and like I said, go through it at least twice, you can see I've got about a liter of fluid left in here. I don't know if it'll come through on the camera. So that tells me I ran at least a liter through, which is about right. I've already done this because I did it without thinking about refilming it, but when you're done, this thing is still pressurized. You can't just pop that off. So you press this button here. You can still hear some more air escaping there out of this thing. That'll relieve the pressure in the system, and then you can unclip this and remove it. And then you can take this away, and you know, if you have another car to do, leave the fluid in there, cool. Otherwise, you can pop this off and pour this back into a bottle to save for another day. So if all you're gonna do is the pressure bleed, don't forget to take the cap off, obviously, and reinstall your level sensor and connect it to the wiring harness. Make sure you have an adequate amount of fluid in the reservoir. The little windows here that you can kind of see, it's a little tricky. Just make sure you got enough fluid in there, but make sure it's not overfilled, and you'll be done. Okay, we just wrapped up doing the pressure bleed. That's a one-man job. Did it twice all the way around, got air out, got nice clean fluid through, so it should be good. But let's talk about the traditional way of bleeding your brakes. So even if you do the traditional or the pressure bleed, do this way just as a fail-safe. So you're gonna need a friend, and you're gonna need a catch bottle, just like we used in the pressure bleed. The sequence is gonna be the exact same as it was on the pressure bleed. So on the C7, we're gonna start front driver, go to the passenger front, then the rear driver, and then the rear passenger. And you're gonna have your friend hop in the car, sit in the driver's seat. You're gonna get everything set up with your wrench on the bleed port and the catch bottle attached and ready to go. And what you're gonna tell him is pump and hold. And then you want him to pump the brakes until they tighten up and then hold it there. And once he's holding, you crack open the bleed port and let it drain. So as you open it, it's going to relieve that pressure, and his brake pedal is gonna start going down. And once he hits the floor, have him tell you, hey, I'm on the floor. Close off the bleed port. Let him re-pump again to where it builds pressure up again, and do the process over and over until you have no more air and it's a nice clean fluid coming out. Now the caveat to all of this is make sure you keep fluid in your reservoir. You do not want this to pull air in there, so every time you do one of the bleeds, make sure you top it back off with fluid to make sure that you're safe there. Go through the whole sequence all over again, make sure everything's good to go, come back over here, top off your reservoir with the appropriate amount of fluid, close it up, and you should be good to go in terms of bleeding your car. Now after that, you want to take your car, you want to drive it out, make sure when you're backing it out, everything feels okay, pump your brakes when you get in there, build some pressure up. They might be a little soft when you first start this. Go out, drive, see how it feels. If it feels soft, find a safe place to get up to about 60 miles an hour and do some emergency braking. Do that a few times, and everything should be able to, everything should be good to go after that. If you get out there or you're like backing your car out and it's super soft and it doesn't build pressure at all, especially before you even start to drive the car, go and bleed everything. Make sure you've got your cap fully secured on your reservoir. Make sure everything's good, and make sure you don't have any leaks, because that could be a sign that something's wrong. But I'll show you what the brake fluid looks like with 3-year-old brake fluid versus the new brake fluid. All right, guys, I've got my two samples here. This one on the left, that is brand new Rova .4 brake fluid. Nice and clear and light green in color, almost like a yellow green. And then on the right, this amber stuff here, that is also the Rova .4 brake fluid that I put in my car about 3 years ago. Caveat, the car sat about 6.5 to 8 months or so while I did my engine replacement, but still, this is 2 trips to the tail of the Dragon with lots of trips up and down the actual Dragon itself, very aggressively driving, multiple trips out to Helen with a lot of mountain spirited runs there, trip to Low Show and back, and just my normal day-to-day driving. I mean, I put a lot of miles on the car and I drive it aggressively, and it actually looks really good for that amount of driving and the way I drive my car. I'll tell you, the OEM fluid when I did my brake change years ago was much darker than that. So yeah, the .4 from Rova, great stuff. All right, everybody, that wraps it up. This is a topic that people ask questions on all the time, so hopefully this will help some of you guys trying to DIY this at home. If you want links to the pressure bleeder or the .4 fluid from Rova, check out the pinned comment below or the description. Should have links for you guys there. But yeah, hopefully you guys found this very interesting and helpful, and if you don't mind, like and subscribe to the channel. That helps me out. Let me know what you want to see in upcoming videos, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.